Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Virginia Palacios, and I'm the Director of Strategic Customer Engagement in HP. And today I'm going to talk about some of the industry trends that we see in automotive. The role that I have is to talk with customers and understand what are the needs that they have in the additive manufacturing, both in terms of the materials and in terms of the machine. So what I will share today is what we have been learning from all of you and where we think 3D printing can help the automotive industry. Let me start with an example of Formula One. Formula One, we believe it's an example of extreme user for 3D printing in the automotive industry. For those of you that are not familiar with the term extreme user, in extreme user, you have the same needs than in an average user, but in an augmented way. So it is much easier to understand what are the problems the user have and which are the potential solutions that we can give to them. Now it's better? Okay. Which are the potential solutions that we can do with them? If you think in the product development cycle of a car, you usually have years to develop the car. In the case of the Formula One, you have months. In order to build prototypes in a normal car, you have months. In Formula One, you have days, sometimes weeks. So everything is like accelerated. We believe Formula One today is a good representation of what the rest of the industry will be in the future. And this is why we like this example. In Formula One, it's all about the time to fast prototype and produce in a much less time the new model. It's all about the performance, the materials that are used, how you can lightweight the car, how you can have a faster car that consumes less, and it's all about the personalization. How can you tailor the design of the car to the user that is going to ride it? Let me start with some of the trends that are affecting the industry as we speak. Industry as we know it today is going to change forever. How we are going to design the cars, how we are going to sell the cars, how we are going to use the cars, how we are going to service the car, how we are going to dispose the car is going to change in the next 10 years. And let me go one by one by some of these trends. There is an underneath trend, as Scott has mentioned in his keynote, that is the faster cycle time. More and more people is expecting that the advancement in the product design is faster, that you have new products every month, some months instead of every several years. Line equipment amortization becomes a challenge, and all the investment that you do for a given model, you need to squeeze the time that you have to amortize. And people is expecting the rate of innovation in the cars the same that in other consumer electronic goods. There is also a big trend on how we are using the cars, and it's the sharing servitization. Things like Uber or Lyft are changing how we use the cars, are going to reduce the number of cars that are needed, and are going to increase the number of kilometers or miles the cars will need. This is riding on the urbanization trend that was explained before and on the sharing economy trend that is so important for millennials. Millennials are going to be a huge part of the population in the future, and all these things are also going to other generations. There are also a lot of trends in the number of regulations that the car industry needs to meet. Regulations about emission, the consumption of the cars are putting very tight requirements for the engineers. Regulations about the recyclability of materials, and as everything in engineering, this follows an 80-20 rules. Reducing 80% of the consumption is kind of easy, requires 20% of your effort. Reducing this 20% that you need to really meet the regulation is would require the highest effort. Anything you can do to lightweight your car is going to help you on the consumption and at the end on meeting those regulations. There is also a huge trend on the technological advancement, and this is an exponential trend. The car is connected. There are firmware upgrades that are pushing functionality. There are self-driving vehicles. Tesla cars have driven over 100 million miles already. To give you an order of magnitude, the Google car drove 1.5 million, and they are getting all the data from all those cars to improve the driving algorithms. this is only going to accelerate. We have the mobility with the connectivity. Our GPS is changing the route depending on the traffic, if there has been an accident, and we expect more and more of this to happen. And many of these things are happening through software. In the past, the electronics in a car were less than 20% of the cost of the car. Now 90% of the innovation is coming from the software. And we expect more and more of this. We expect the car that is upgrading functionality in the future. This has some challenge on cybersecurity, but it's definitely something that we will see more and more. And last but definitely not least, there are new players entering in the market. And these new players are going to redefine the rules of the industry. These players are designing their supply chains, designing their cars with the technology that is available today. Not the technology that was available 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago. They have internet, they have the cloud, they have mobility completely embedded in how they are designing. And when they set up the new rules, all the consumer will expect the same. You will expect that your car upgrades functionality. You will expect that you can sell direct. If you have an electric vehicle, the service that you have is much less, so the whole business model needs to change. These new players are going to disrupt the rules, and the rest of the industry needs to adapt. I hope by now I have convinced you that we need to do something about it. So now I'm going to explain you where 3D printing can help the automotive industry. And it's not only automotive industry. Some of these trends are also happening in other industries. And there are other companies like ourselves. We are already starting to use 3D printing for final part manufacturing, something that was not possible before. In the printer that we just introduced, 50% of the custom plastic parts are going to be 3D printed with our multi-fusion technology, not because we can do it, but because it makes economical sense to do it. And this is what we expect that will happen with other industries as well. Many of the big players have been working on 3D for several years. We have the examples that Cristobal was sharing. We have some of our partners are in the automotive industry, and they have several examples of where you can use 3D printing. So let me go on why is people using 3D printing today. And let me start with the value capture side of it. Probably the first thing that people use 3D printing for is to save time, to accelerate development cycles. Many people are starting 3D printing with prototyping, especially things like the dashboard or the bumper are very useful to do in 3D printing for form, function type of testing. You don't need to wait for the mold. You don't need to spend the amount of money that these long molds need. And you can really accelerate your development and give more terms to it. But it's not only during development. You can also have a better service when you need to have spare parts for a car, if you can produce them in 3D printing when you need it, instead of having inventory all around the world for specific models. The second reason, and this is also a very, very important one, is about the cost. It's about the cost of the tooling. If you can keep prototyping in 3D printing longer, you will reduce the tooling investment, and you will make it when you are sure about the design, so you don't need to spend money in tooling modifications. It's about the cost of the part, depending on the amount of units that you make. If you have short series things for countries like the UK, or things like for fleets, for police cars, something specific, is not economically viable to do it today. You may still need to do it because you need to have a car in the UK, or you need to build a car for the police, but sometimes it's not economically viable. We can make it economically viable with 3D printing. It's also about the cost of the parts themselves. When you can combine different parts in one, is the cost of the assembly, is the cost of the warranty. If these moving parts can fail, if you have a unique part, your reliability is going to be better. Is the cost of all the inventory and all the capital that you have when you have all those spare parts around the world in case you need to service in 20 years from now a given car. And it's the cost of the car stop because the part didn't arrive. But this is only the first side of it. When you really get to the value creation is when you get the full benefit of 3D printing. Is when you have the performance increase. Is when you have the designs that can only be manufactured with 3D printing. Is when you unleash really the potential of creativity of your engineers. When you can really go and do exactly the path that you needed for the oil, for the air, for whatever, because you can manufacture whatever you want, and it's free. And it's when you can lightweight your car, when you can help the consumption just with this lightweighting. And last but not least, it's about personalization, it's about customization, it's about making accessories that make the car more relevant for you, that will drive preference of the consumers to your brand. When you are doing the buying of a car, this is sometimes an emotional buying for people. So when you don't really think on what you are paying for the accessory and the value that this accessory is going to give you. So if you can make accessories that are more personal, more relevant, you will increase the number of accessories people will buy. And the same way that sometimes you cannot afford to be changing houses and you renovate your house, maybe in the future you will renovate the interior of your car. Maybe you will change part of the hardware. You don't need to change it completely. The same way that you can do software upgrades in the future, you could be doing potentially hardware upgrades. And now let me tap on a couple of barriers that have been present in the industry up to now, and it's about the materials, the performance of the materials, and the cost of the materials. Because everything that I have explained is very nice, but reality is that only some companies are doing final part with 3D printing today, and there are reasons for that. One of the reasons is the range of materials, the performance materials, automotive grade that can meet the regulations that you all need, and the other is the cost of these materials and how we can make this economical sense. In order to address both of them, what we have with our technologies and open platform for materials, we are opening the system for the big material players to design materials that will work with multi-jet fusion. In this way, we can work with customers, understand what are their needs, and then expand the available materials as well as get into economies of scale, because more and more users will do final part production. These economies of scale will drive down cost, and then it will be even more reasonable to make things in 3D. So now imagine that we have all adopted 3D printing, and now let's see how the world looks like in some years from now. We have faster cycle times. We can renew our portfolio of cars much more often than in the past. We can have adaptive supply chain. We build what we needed, when we need it, and where we need it. So only exactly what we need. We don't have waste. We don't have inventories. We don't have storage. And we do this distributed production. We may think in finishing the car at the dealer next to the customer, maybe have the customer be part of this process as in some of the high-end cars today, so it's even more personal, more relevant for me. You can have virtual inventories. You only need to store the files in a secure way so that you can print the files that meet the quality requirements in order to repair your car. And even better, you are not going to repair with the same part that failed. You are going to repair with a new design that will not fail. So what your customer is going to perceive is even better because you have solved the design issue. You can make the things more personal, more relevant, and you can lightweight your car, reduce the consumption, have a more sustainable environment. So let me finish where we started. Now it's a time of change. It's a time of technology adoption. You need to decide where do you want to be at the end of the race. Are you going to be one of the early adopters? Are you going to heavily invest now and then end the race in the first two or the first three? Are you going to be more in the majority, less investment, less benefit at the beginning? Are you going to be at the end of the race? This is the call to action. Where do you want to be at the end of the race? What are you going to do about 3D printing today? I really thank you for your attention, and I encourage you to visit our booth, to talk to our staff there. We want to understand your needs. We want to understand which are your requirements. We want to understand how our machine is fitting those needs and how our machine will fit it in the future, which materials we need to develop. So I really encourage you to spend some time with us later today. Thank you.